This is Democracy Watch. Mark, we just got the news that in large part we've been expecting and dreading since even before Trump took office when he was just campaigning. I'm going to put a headline right here on the screen. Trump fired 4 top immigration court officials hours after taking office. The firings targeted civil servants who were not politically appointed and came without cause or warning. So this is very much the Schedule F portion of Project 2025, this idea that Donald Trump is going to come in and not just fire his political appointees, but fire the civil servants, the people who make up the hundreds and thousands of government officials who are largely responsible for making the government run. First and foremost, is this legal? Is he able to do this?
Brian, no, he can't. As you point out, these people were senior executive service, which means they're career civil servants. They are not subject to firing. They're unless for cause. They're not partisan appointments, and it's very, very troubling for 2 reasons, Brian. Number one, as you read, these people are in charge of overseeing the immigration court system. Right. So now these aren't courts in the sense that like we think of federal district courts who are appointed by presidents and confirmed for a lifetime. These are administrative courts. These are within the immigration service. But these are the folks who adjudicate, immigration claims, whether someone is here or not or has a reason to stay here if there's a dispute. And firing those folks is essentially targeting the judicial function of the immigration service, right? It's not like they started with Project 2025 here in immigration by firing, people who are, doing raids. Or people who are, sending out forms. It's quite a direct message and a shot across the bow that he is starting with the people who do the adjudications of immigration reviews. And when you couple that, Brian, with what we also saw, and you and I did another video on, I hope we put a link to it, about what happened with the inspectors general, now you're starting to see the picture really come into focus, right? Who he wants to fire are the people who are the watchdogs in the case of the inspector generals and the protectors, the adjudicators, the people who are there to protect constitutional rights within the immigration service. And then, of course, you have his executive order targeting birthright citizenship. So you could really start to see the building of an authoritarian takeover that couples Schedule F, as you mentioned here, with unconstitutional actions and by targeting the people who are supposed to be blowing the whistle on these kinds of things in the Inspector General's offices.
So my question now is, what recourse is there? And the reason that I ask this is because I think that if there is no pushback, that will basically serve as an indication for Trump that he can go ahead, that this is the precedent. It's been established. There's no pushback, and he can barrel forward firing not just a handful of career civil servants, but hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of career civil servants and replace them with people who share his partisan ideological worldview. And the reason that I ask what the recourse is it incumbent upon these specific career civil servants to push back or to file suit? Because they may not have the appetite or the resources to do it. And so if Trump fired these people knowing that they don't have the appetite or the resources, then that will basically give him, that will basically embolden him to know that all of these career civil servants who work within the government, who aren't necessarily big names, who don't have the, the financial backing to start waging a political fight against the president of the United States, then they would be targets as well. So who does it have to be that has to push back on this stuff?
Look, I think you have laid out exactly Donald Trump's thinking, right? I mean, if you've laid it out, which is number one, he is targeting the adjudicators, the people who are there to protect constitutional and statutory rights. Number two, he's firing the watchdog people in the inspector general. But number three, and this is where you're spot on. He is testing not just the political system, not just whether Republicans will stand up and do the right things, which they won't, not even whether the courts would do the right things, because I think in these instances the courts would do the right thing, but whether or not individuals who right now have the benefit of anonymity, right? They are not on the front page of the newspaper targeted by Donald Trump. They are not, their names are not being put out there for the newly released January 6th rioters to have their information, right? And he's making those folks make a decision. Do they fight or do they walk away?
Yeah.
And, you can't entirely blame those folks if they decide to walk away, right? Because like you said, it's a long fight, it's resources, but it's also the threats that come with it, the threats from the administration, the threats from the right-wing ecosystem.
From his supporters who've shown that they're willing to attack these people.
Yeah, but I think that this is a very deliberate decision on Donald Trump's part, because if these people do not fight, and you're right, that is who would have standing, to answer your question directly, that is who would have standing to go to court, would be these individuals. If they don't take up this fight, then when he fires the next 8 or the next 80 or the next 800 and then 8,000, he will be able to say, look, I mean, I was able to fire the people who run the immigration courts. What standing or complaint could the people who, are in much less sensitive roles have? And it just snowballs. It just creates a snowballing effect. And that is what he wants. And it is the reason why you and I and so many others call this out constantly. It's why I fear the legacy media does not oftentimes call this out, because they don't want to be in that spotlight, right? They too don't want that. But it's the reason why more than ever we need independent media to be willing to stand up for this, because it's really hard to ask the individuals who are affected. And I certainly don't trust that big corporate news is going to risk anything to piss off this administration.
Right. Well, of course, that underscores the importance of outlets like yours, like Democracy Docket, which you founded to focus on everything voting and elections. For folks who are watching right now, if you are not yet signed up, please send a message to Legacy Media that you are willing to support media that actually engages in fearless journalism, that is actually looking to hold power to account. I'll put the link right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. Marc, you had just mentioned that those are the people who are getting fired right now, these career civil servants, these largely anonymous folks who have standing to sue. Would it be possible for anybody else to sue on their behalf just by virtue of Donald Trump doing something illegal?
I mean, in some instances, probably not with these individuals, but in some instances, for example, the labor unions that represent them would have standing to sue. I suspect these folks would not be eligible to be in a labor union, so that's probably not an option. There may be some class action opportunities, right, where you have a class-wide group of people whose rights have been violated. At the outer limits of creative thinking, you might be able to have a lawsuit by folks who are actually impacted by this. In other words, the people who come before the courts. Now, those folks are even more vulnerable, right? Because now you're talking about people who have immigration hearings. And so they may, they might be able to say, look, the system is now more rigged against me. But Donald Trump they are picking their fights. Let me give you a couple of other things that have been in the news recently that, again, people may not connect up the dots. The Department of Justice canceled its honors program, right? This is a program where the Department of Justice recruits from elite law schools to have people who want to do nonpartisan positions, right? These people are not political appointees. They're coming right out of law school. They're going into the Department of Justice as career prosecutors or career lawyers. He canceled all of those. Now, why would he cancel that? For the same reason as you see him targeting this, which is that he wants to implement Schedule F every way he can. So here he's doing it at the top. There he's doing it at the entry level. Right. With the inspector generals, he's doing it at the watchdogs. This is going to be one of the, I fear, most underreported stories because it does have so many vectors. And, the vector that we're talking about today is one of the most pernicious, as I mentioned, because it involves judicial function of the executive branch and the protection of constitutional rights. But I think we're going to wake up and realize almost every day that the Trump administration has another way of targeting these career people who want to spend a career serving the government rather than serving Donald Trump.
Can you explain briefly why this matters? Like, if people are watching this and saying, well, who cares if it's political appointees that fill up the government or if it's career civil servants, what's the difference to me? Like, what could the natural conclusion of Trump's plan to enact Schedule F actually look like? Why is it important?
Yeah, it's vitally important because Donald Trump wants a government that is loyal to him, not loyal to the Constitution. He wants a government that serves him, not serves you, the American people. Donald Trump doesn't want equal justice under the law. He wants to dictate justice where there is no law. And so the way in which he wants to do that is by removing the people who administer justice evenly, who administer benefits regardless of whether you live in California or you live in Florida, who says that if you suffer a natural disaster and a fire in Los Angeles, you deserve the same equal dignity and treatment as if you live in Western North Carolina and suffer a flood, right? This will have real world consequences beyond what it means for people, migrants seeking immigration hearings, or even what it means for people working in agencies who want fair whistleblowers. It will affect each and every one of us. It may affect whether you get a building permit or a waiver, whether a corporation is given accelerated approvals or no approvals at all. Eventually, what Donald Trump wants is a government that he is able to dictate the winners and losers, not just on a mass scale, not just on an economy-wide scale, but on a person-by-person scale. You are favored and you get protection. You are disfavored. You get investigated and prosecuted. We are going to see political prosecutions. And the way that he's building up to that is by doing these small steps first to get everyone used to it, to get the legacy media compromised, which it already is, and bought in. And so we need each and every one of you watching this to do a few things. Number one, you need to stand up and stand tall, not back away, not disengage. Number two, we need you to support independent media and the people who are voices willing to speak out. You know, it is not the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal or the Washington Post at the end of the day that are going to be the ones who are going to be willing to sacrifice all of their relationships, all of their access journalism to speak clearly and unequivocally in favor of democracy. And number three, we can't count on Republicans to stand up to Donald Trump. Stop worrying about the Democrats are doing. Democrats are in the minority. They're doing just fine. It is the Republicans that are the problem. And the Republicans want to distract from this by saying, well, this, and this. We need to get rid of Republicans. And I know it's another couple of years till we have elections, but it's never too early to organize.
Perfectly put. We will, of course, stay on top of this as soon as we have any more updates, especially on the Schedule F front, which is something that you and I have been speaking about for a very, very, very long time now, and something that the legacy media, again, to your exact point, has been conspicuously silent on.
Actually, worse than that, Brian, I want to jump in here. You know, I know you want to end the video, but I want to jump in here for a second. It's not that the legacy media has been conspicuously silent. When you and I were talking about Project 2025, the legacy media said we were exaggerating.
Yeah.
When you and I were blowing the whistle on 2025, the legacy media said you guys are demagoguing. They were fact checking. And you say, oh, you know, that's crazy. You're just fear monger. So it's worse than they didn't cover. They gave cover. And here we are.
Perfectly put. To that point then, again, for people watching right now, if you want to support fearless journalism, make sure to sign up for Democracy Docket. I'll put the link right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
I'm Marc Elias.
This is Democracy Watch.